Hey, everybody. I just wanted to pop on. I hadn't been on for a while. Hey, everybody. I just wanted to pop on. Haven't been on for a while, and talk to you a little bit about what's been on my mind this morning today, since this weekend. So, what I want to talk about is reality. This is kind of where we are in making sure that we're not taking things that we have or we can offer for granted. This means your people, your own health, anything like that. We all assume that it will never be us, but that's out of our control. Um, Ironically, my story starts on Friday when I decided, based on recommendations from my mother in law, who is also in nursing, that we have masks if we were to go anywhere in public. So while we haven't been going anywhere, my husband's an essential employee, and so he's been out. And just in the off chance we would, and I have time, right? So I figured I should listen, even though to me the mask thing seemed silly. I found myself making more than a dozen of them for my family so that we had multiple, just in case that they were there. Even made one for our scout elf. Here she is, Lolo. So I had to make a miniature one. Yep, she's back to be a friend for our only child daughter who is missing the socializing of school. So that's the reality right now that we're hitting. Remember, we all do what we feel we have to do to get through different situations. So that's what we had to do to get through this. So I broke out all my supplies that I started collecting my freshman year of college. So I had held on to them thinking, oh, maybe I'll go back to that textiles and apparel piece. So my hubby had went to go pick up lunch for us since we've been social distancing with my parents, because they watch our daughter. They had planned to come over for lunch. So my mom showed up and I was making the masks and said Dad wasn't feeling good. Didn't think anything of it. He has a lot of kind of those underlying vulnerable population conditions. And so it's like, okay, he doesn't feel good. Then I started to question if I should have let her in my house. Those paranoid thoughts that start going through your head, like, ugh, okay, is it the COVID? Is it he just doesn't feel good? What is this really about? So too late now. We had already been around Dad yesterday. So what's one more situation with having my mom in the house? So I guess it was just a timing thing between the masks and my dad getting sick. We called to check on my dad, and it seemed odd when we talked to him. So my mom went home to check on him in person. Then I got a phone call from her, and she was turning to me for advice on what steps she should take. And my dad was more than willing to be calling the doctor. And so it was a little more concerning. Ultimately, the reality is this was not the Easter weekend that we had planned. The next thing we knew, the nurse in the emergency room had told my mom that she should call 911. They asked her some questions. Then they sent an ambulance to transport my dad. At the hospital, she wasn't allowed to leave the ER when he was finally going to be moved to a room. So she had to leave the hospital. We spent the weekend, all of us, with lots of questions. Texting back and forth with my siblings, with my mom, wondering if it was COVID because the symptoms seemed to be there, and considering what that meant for him, for us. Who had we been in contact with? What else could we do? We were at a distance because we couldn't physically be there. Who did we need to tell? What did we need to be sharing? So finally on Sunday, we got the call from my dad in his isolation room in the hospital saying that he was negative for COVID. So no COVID, thankfully. A rush of relief washed over all of us. We could stop thinking about what that isolation quarantine plan was going to be, who else we needed to contact, and let know what was happening, that there, could be at risk, that type of thing. We had all been thinking through kind of every scenario with all of Dad's pre-existing conditions. Relief that it wasn't one thing, even though it's still a serious infection causing him to be sick. But having no contact with a family member because of this COVID outbreak or pandemic, it's strange. It's scary. It means he's sitting alone in a hospital. My mom's sitting at home or sitting with us. My siblings are sitting at home. One's local and one's out of state, just getting messages relayed from a nurse that, we get those updates from when my mom calls in or happens to talk to Dad, between his resting and in and out of coherency as he sits in the hospital room. It's scary. It's odd. None of us know what to do because we can't do what we would normally do in these situations. So this is me being vulnerable, which is about all we can be right now. And that's what I want to share. We have to be able to share our experiences and talk to people and put it out there. I can't control the situation nor the virus, and neither can you. We never could have predicted that he would randomly, have an infection during this time that would also present in the same way that COVID did. Obviously we're thankful that it's one thing and not the other, but it's odd to seem thankful that it is still someone being sick and you're grateful for that versus it being a virus of some sort. So this is my reminder to you that we are not invincible. I think that I have a tendency to believe that we are, and that it's not going to happen to us. It's not going to be us. There's clearly a reason for all the social distancing. And I think while I was taking it seriously, I have thought about it even more and more and what that means and all the connections, and just by being one, with one person, how that can impact another person. It can happen to you. This time is scary enough, having to rearrange our lives to be at home, create that new normal. But now adding other elements of sickness, just being glad it's not COVID, it really puts things in perspective when you have to think about what you've done, where you've been, who you've been around. Like I said, my husband and my mom are considered essential. Thinking about, having to take your temperature twice a day for 14 days just to make sure that you haven't contracted it too, those types of things. Even though we aren't having to do that right this second, there's nothing saying that it can't happen to you. And so if we don't, we're lucky at this time that we're not a part of those COVID numbers. But if we don't do our part, then there's always that possibility. We're not immune from anything. And I get it. Life needs to go on. I believe in that. But clearly it has to be in a different way. What actions do you need to change now and moving forward? That's what I want you to think about. Are you out and about when you don't need to be? Or are you having to be out and about? And that's scary, and you need to share that. We're all in different places for different reasons. And so just thinking about that. We're thinking about how we can be there for my dad and supporting the medical staff in a way that makes sense, and that we can still be informed about what's going on, what's happening, without being a burden to them. But also, we can't physically be there, so we need to know what's happening. We need to understand what's happening. And I've been venting and questioning that with my friends and things like that, and they've been super supportive with, walking me through and helping us all think rationally during this time too. We're all still navigating this. So while we've lost our routine, we need to make a new one. We've lost all of our normal, so we need to make a new one. We have to name our losses so that we can actually feel it. We all feel different losses differently, and different losses at that. The worst loss is always going to be your own, so just stop comparing. I think we do too much of that. We put too much guilt on ourselves, someone else always has it worse. Yeah, they probably do, but this is your reality that you're living in, the situation that you're dealing with. So be okay with the differences that we are going to have and the ways that we are going to feel things. We're all at this point just trying to do what we can to stay alive. People are adjusting to different school situations right now with their kids. All of our losses, or even gains, I guess, with the school piece at this point, they're valid and legit. And so it's okay to feel what you're feeling, to think what you're thinking, but we still have to respect each other in that way, and how we're all going to deal with that and move forward. So I encourage you to share and talk about your losses, whatever that is for you during this time, whether it's just the fact that you have to stay home and you can't be around people. That's a loss for you, especially if you're an extrovert. You need that. If we can't feel it, we can't heal it. So being able to talk about it and share and work through that, be vulnerable, not something I'm good at, trying, but here we are. So share a video, a post, a phone call, whatever works for you to put yourself out there and hopefully get any support that you need. Thanks.